All right. Chapter 14, Health and Safety. Again, you should have your resources. You should have your book From Overwhelmed to I Got This. You should have your workbook, the director workbook. Again, your workbooks can be digital. You can print out just the pages you need. I suggest that you have already read the health and safety chapter. Another really important part of the health and safety chapter is your state regulations. Most of the people who are taking our course who are watching this video are in the state of Texas. But if for some reason you're not, please make sure that you are looking at your state regulations, your county health regulations, as well as anything that you might need to know related to your fire regulations. Other places that have really helpful materials are going to be related to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Also, make sure you know whatever your county immunization record requirements are, because that's also really, really important when it comes to the health and safety of the children in your program. All right, so traditionally in this course, this chapter had been one of the longest chapters. We do have several podcasts as additional resources for this episode. So I strongly encourage you, if you want to get the most out of this course, that you listen to and or watch those Zoom recordings. I'm pretty sure that most of them are audio recordings, but sometimes we do add some additional updates and new ones, which could potentially be Zoom. So chapter 14, one of the things that I want you to look at is, does your playground make the grade? Now, Carrie and I have been teaching this course for 21 years, and playground safety has always been something that we have really strived to encourage our directors to take a look at. And as a result, we have always thought about playgrounds as being something that was never strong enough in the safety component. And even to the point where it was one of those things that we always really encouraged people to even look at some of the additional training that was available related to playground safety. We've even done an episode. So we have a podcast, and I know we've talked about it before, but Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie. And we actually did an episode in 2023 related to some additional certifications. And one of those certifications is actually that of a certified playground inspector. And so with that, that is something to consider, having somebody on your staff actually go through that certification and then use that in your marketing, because you get to really promote the fact that you take this serious. All right. So when we start talking about the health and safety of children, so in chapter 14, I mean, we could be here all day, right? Like, so the health and safety of the children in your program, wow, right? Like, there's a lot that we have to do to keep the children in our program safe. So there's safety checks, there's keeping them from choking, there's allergies and food allergies, and we are learning more and more about what that means. We actually have several episodes on here as bonus episodes related to making sure that you understand what happens if you get sick, what happens if your teachers get sick. And so what does that look like from medical authorization forms, right? So we want to make sure that everybody in your program gets covered, and you think through, what does that mean if you have a teacher who is allergic to bees? Not just what happens if you have kids that are allergic to bees, because a lot of times as directors, we focus and hyper-focus on the kids, but we really need to make sure that we are really, really thinking about our staff, because our staff are the key to our program, right? Without awesome staff, our kids aren't going to be in the best program in our community. So we also want to make sure that we look at everything there is to know about food, right? So Really want to make sure that you think about everything related to the choking and food hazards that you have related to the health and safety. So we have licensing requirements and all the regulations. You have food allergies. You need to have regular training related to food allergies. So make sure of that. You need to know what you need to do related to summer, right? So what do we need to do to keep the kids safe in the summer, right? What do we need to do related to shade, related to sun, related to water, related to sunscreen? Okay, so do all of the kids have their own sunscreen? Do they have their names on them? Are you making sure it's being applied every time they go outside? There is no such thing as bad weather. There's only such things as being poorly prepared for the weather. And so we just want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and the kids at your program. And so health and safety is incredibly important. And this is where you as a director and the staff at your program have a wealth of knowledge. This is where you have an opportunity to also regularly educate the parents. Right? Let's be honest, right? We have all seen that parent show up with the kid with the Frappuccino and ho-hos for breakfast, right? So we want to make sure that our kids get balanced nutrition. So if you're part of the food program, this is a great way to make sure that your kids have some balanced nutrition during the course of the day. It's also a way for you to have an additional revenue stream or for this to not be an expense necessarily at your program. If you aren't familiar with the food program, I suggest that you reach out to us at Carrie@texasdirector.org. Let Carrie help you connect with a food program in your region and help you understand kind of where the pluses and minuses are related to the food program. And again, this is another one of those things that keeps evolving and it's becoming more and more streamlined and less complicated for you as a provider, especially if you have children who are on CCS, CCMS, some sort of government subsidized tuition. Definitely something you need to take a look at. All right. So as we continue to look at health and safety, I want you to think of health and safety by classroom or by age, not necessarily just lumping all of your kids in health and safety all in one. So the health and safety of your infants is going to look very different than the health and safety for your preschoolers or your school agers. So think about when you are training your infant teachers, make sure that you are talking to them about the health and safety of the infants by ages, not just as infants. So because what licensing determines as an infant is going to be very different than what some of the different challenges might be related to their health and safety based on their developmental needs and abilities. So continue to make sure that when you are doing developmental training with your staff, because again, as you have new staff who may not have ever had children or have maybe this is their first time in a classroom, make sure that you are continuing to do that education so that they know what is normal, also what to look for developmentally, so that they are aware when different types of foods, different textures of foods should be introduced. So when children should be going from liquids to soft foods to solids, etc. You also want to make sure that they know the different sleeping positions and why different sleeping positions work best afternoon, after food. Why do we burp? All of those things. Believe it or not, we don't want to ever make the assumption that our staff know. And so we want to make sure that we have done everything we can to educate our staff. Remember, our staff are our advocates, and they are also the ones who are going to end up educating our parents. So after you have educated your staff, and your staff are educating your parents, this is also, think of it as a great way to continue to provide marketing resources to your parents. What do I mean by that? Well, you have a couple of options. Health and safety workshops are also great tools to continue to include in your newsletters. Short little blurbs that are things to remember when you have infants, things to remember for infants in the summer. So how do infants get their liquids in the summer? How do toddlers get their infants in the summer? What happens if you can't get the toddler to drink their water in the summer? Other ways infants and toddlers can get water in the summer. These are great little fun facts that you can include in your email newsletter. You can include in a text. You can include them in your social media. You can also include them in local Facebook news groups. You can include them in community newsletters. Again, these are ways where you get to establish your program as the expert. If you're not really sure what this content needs to be, again, reach out at texasdirector.org. Let us know you'd like that content, and we can definitely make that happen for you. We want you to make sure that you look like you're the expert. All right, as you're moving through your classrooms and you start to get into your toddler classrooms, again, help your staff make sure that they understand what's appropriate. What do they need to be doing for the kid that tumbles all the time? What do they need to be doing for the kids that are stressed out and they're hitting or they're biting or they're throwing things? How do they need to be able to manage those behaviors? Yes, we're going to talk about them in other places in this curriculum, but because sometimes they end up as a health and safety issue, I wanted to touch base with them a little bit here. Play-Doh is your friend. Shaving cream is your friend. Anytime you have toddlers or even preschoolers that are stressed out, again, mental health starts younger and younger, and we are seeing more and more kids with some of those trauma responses, and we're starting to realize that's what's going on, right? So if we have kids that are stressed, nervous, anxious, and they're taking it out on their friends by throwing toys, etc., we want to make sure that, if one of our kids throws a toy at a friend and now their friend has a boo-boo, not only do we fill out all of the boo-boo reports, but that we also we do what we need to do, right? Like we're putting the ice packs on those boo-boos. If we've got a kid who is obviously very, very stressed, that we give them some Play-Doh to play with. Right? Let them take that tension out on the Play-Doh. Same with shaving cream. If you've never had kids play with the shaving cream, it's another way to give them an opportunity to do some self-soothing activities with shaving cream on a table. It does a pretty good job of cleaning your table too. So again, we'll talk about some of those activities as we get through other parts of the course, or at least I'm pretty sure Carrie will probably talk about them. But those are things to just kind of think about when you're doing some general health and safety as you're talking about toddlers. As you start to talk about preschoolers, often remember that when you're on the playground, preschoolers are going to need, just believe it or not, they need a little more guidance and a little more observation. As a director, you want to make sure that your teachers actually know what it means to observe on the playground. Observing on the playground is not lifeguarding. This has got to be one of my biggest pet peeves. So if you ever see me at your program, the first thing I'm going to do is, are you lifeguarding on a playground? You need to be interacting with the kids on the playground. They need to know and learn and see you interacting with them on the playground. Your job is not just there to watch them go up and down slides or to swing on swings. Your job is to play with them, just like you would in a classroom. Okay, so the preschoolers need to engage with you on the playground. Again, this is a great opportunity for you to continue to learn, to teach your staff how to do this, but it's also a great way for your staff to engage with the parents. I had one program that this is actually how they ended the day. This is where families actually picked up, was on the playground. And part of the reason they did that is that they knew that a lot of their families spent a lot of time at playgrounds, but they also knew that a lot of the parents sat on the benches at playgrounds and the kids that just played. And so they wanted to basically teach the parents how to play with their kids on the playground. And so they literally would bring the parents in and they would engage with the parents and the kids on the playground, and they would talk with the parents and the kids about how the day went on the playground so that they learned how to talk and play at the same time. So there is always a way to make that space work for you. Finally, if you're one of those programs that has school agers, please don't forget them. Don't treat them like they are like an extra, okay? Because that means that if you have school agers, you've probably had them since they were maybe infants and toddlers. That means that you've had them for a really, really long time, and that family has been valuable for you. Do the math. If you're not sure about that, when's the last time you actually sat down and figured out how much that family has been worth to your program? If you're not sure you should have schoolers, I know that this is a section talking about health and safety, but here's a chance to do some money math. Do the money math on toddlers who stay with you from 2 to 12, even 2 to 10. There you go. There's some fun math for you. Okay, so how much is a family really worth to you? Anyway, I want you to please, please, please remember that schoolers are still very much figuring out how their bodies move. They do not really need a whole lot of fine motor skills. Chances are they're getting that at home. They are probably very much using computers and technology at home, but they really do need those gross motor skills. Get them out there doing, even if it means you're out there doing calisthenics with them, get them doing jumping jacks, get them doing things that use those big motor skills. They need you. They really, really need you on those playgrounds. Lots of playground time, which means that chances are it's early in the morning, and that may be it, especially if you're in Texas. Anyway, we hope that you will continue on through the course. You are about halfway done, but you know what? It's okay, because we know that you're going to go from overwhelmed to I got this, and you are absolutely that superhero that the teachers and that the staff, the teachers and the kids need at your program. If you are stuck, if some of this just isn't making sense to you, put a pause on the course, send us an email, reach out. We are here to help you.